Hello, I'm State Senator John Kavanagh, and welcome to another edition of Kavanagh's Corner, my legislative video report to my constituents and anybody else interested on what's happening in the legislature. This report is for the week of March 20th. Before I get into the bills, my bills that passed out of various committees on the floor, a quick budget update. We've had some movement on the budget. As chairman of the Senate Appropriations Committee, I'm part of a small group of Republican legislators in the House and the Senate that initially worked together to construct the Republican budget with input from members, and then move forward to try and get a full budget by negotiating with the governor. Although now, because we have a Democrat governor, the Democrat legislators have also become a significant part of the process. We tried to get the Democrat legislators, House and Senate Democrats, into the process early by asking them to give us their line item amount requests prioritized. The main part of the budget is called the baseline budget, and that's last year's budget with no one-time items. They were all removed. Last year's budget with corrections for inflation and increases and decreases in populations, be it prisoners or students in school or people on health care. That's the baseline. That always becomes the foundation. And then we look at how much extra revenue we have. This year, we only have, well, it's significant, actually. This year we have $1.8 billion, but it's all one-time revenue. There is no new revenue that's ongoing, which means we're very limited in what we can spend the one-time revenue on. Because if you spend one-time revenue on some new program or you increase an existing program that needs continual spending year after year, there's no money the next year. So we limit the one-time revenue to one-time items. So with 1.8 billion, we shopped our members, and we have pretty much what we want a big chunk of that to be decided, to be used for. We asked the Democrats in both the House and the Senate, we gave them 2 weeks. In the end, they said, we are not ready to give you any specifics. We can't do anything for 3 weeks until some report comes out in April, which really would not affect the budget significantly. So they basically disappeared. So we immediately shifted to negotiations with the governor. And we're dealing with the governor's office. We just started this week, and it does look promising. It does look like we're going to be moving forward. And hopefully the governor will represent or get her legislative Democrat members in line. So we could have a budget in a couple of weeks, possibly. But then again, maybe we won't. But that said, let's get into the bills. So I had my SB 1060 animal owners definition move out of the House committee that deals with rural and animal affairs. And this is a very simple bill. Under current law, if you possess an animal for 7 days or more, it becomes your animal. And therefore, you have responsibilities for it. You can't abandon it. The Maricopa County Shelter, which was in quite a bit of disarray and probably still is, was asking volunteers to take some of the excess animals they couldn't house at the shelter and keep them in their homes as a favor. And these animal lovers were doing that. And then some of them said, I can't do this anymore. And they were told by the shelter that because you had the animal more than 7 days, you cannot give the animal up. It's your animal. You've got to take care of it. Well, they said, we did it because you asked us to. And they were right. This should not be applying. So this changes the law and says, if an animal shelter asks you to watch an animal for them, that doesn't count towards the 7-day period. All right, moving on to the House Military Affairs and Public Safety Committee. SB 1148 is my bill which would allow police departments to charge reasonable processing fees when they release the video recordings of police activity to members of the public through Freedom of Information requests. And make this clear. We're not talking about police videos like body camera videos that have to be used in court. Those are required free of charge by subpoena. This is when a newspaper or even an ordinary citizen makes a request to see the recording. And that costs a lot of money. Because it's not just the matter of the labor of finding the footage and duplicating it and giving them a little $2 disc or thumb drive. All of these videos have to be reviewed by people familiar with the law, because there are many things in the videos that cannot be released to the public, like the images of minors, personal information that might be on the screen. So it's very expensive to release these videos, and the cities and towns want to get the reasonable cost reimbursed to them. Because right now, with virtually no expenses, people are asking for ridiculous amounts of video. Often at one incident, they'll want every officer's camera video footage. And it's so bad that there's now a backlog of a year to get these videos, which really defeats the whole purpose of public records requests. Moving on. SB 1301, law enforcement investigations. Last year, when we discovered that mostly the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office was way behind in doing internal discipline investigations of their police officers. Now, let me emphasize, this is internal discipline. Officers accused of breaking a departmental rule or being rude to a member of the public. We're not talking about criminal investigations. They were way behind in these investigations, and that was a problem for the officers, because when you have an outstanding investigation against you, it could stop a promotion, or if you wanted to transfer to a different department, they would be told that you have an outstanding discipline case, and they might not want to accept you. So there should be a reasonable timeline. Well, last year we imposed a requirement that investigations have to be completed by 1 year, or else they're considered over. And that was passed. However, we discovered that that doesn't apply to the investigations that started prior to that law being effective. And we now learned that there are some investigations that are as much as 5 years old. So we're simply applying the you got 1 year rule to all those past investigations. Moving on, House Government Committee. Municipal notices and ordinances, posting. This very simply says that a lot of these legal notices that municipalities have to publish in newspapers, which cost them money, can now be put on their website. People aren't interested in notices of contract bids and posting of ordinances. Nobody reads these notices. Yet the newspapers get paid money because we require that they be posted in the newspaper. Virtually nobody reads these postings, and there's no reason. So to save taxpayers' dollars, we're not going to allow the municipality to post it on their website if people are interested. Besides, not many people get paper newspapers anymore. Everybody's on the internet. 1026, state monies drag show minors. There are a number of bills that are attempting to restrict drag shows. Most of the bills deal with drag shows that are very, very racy and sexy, almost adult level shows. And I support those bills to limit them. But my bill is a little bit different. You now have people dressed in drag acting like they're doing drag shows with exaggerated makeup, dress, and gestures. They're now targeting children as part of the culture war to win over the hearts and minds of people that this is perfectly normal activity, cross-dressing and exaggerated behaviors. They're going to libraries and doing story hours and reading stories to kids, or having family drag shows. This is not acceptable for two reasons. Number one, this could be disturbing to a child to see a person who appears to be a male dressed up and behaving this way. So it could be disturbing to them. But in addition, we're talking about indoctrination. These people are trying to make children think that this is perfectly normal, no problem. Well, that's a cultural issue. And I don't think we should be indoctrinating and propagandizing our young children in these areas. I mean, after all, there's time enough to indoctrinate our kids when they get to college. So my bill says you can't spend any public monies for a drag show that targets children. Otherwise, the entity doing that loses all public funding for 3 years. Moving on. Campaign finance reporting thresholds lobbyists. Right now, if you make a donation to a political campaign and the donation is $100 or less, your name does not appear on the campaign report the candidate files. So nobody knows that you did that donation. And a lot of people want to keep that private because it's your name, it's your address, and your employer. if the donation is over 100, that gets publicized. Well, some people who don't like certain candidates or certain initiatives will get the names of people who donated money to that and call their employers saying, hey, this person, your employee is a horrible person. He supported this candidate or voted for this measure or gave money to it. Fire them. People literally do this. It's called doxing. Well, the whole purpose of giving information on who gives campaign contributions is to let people see who's trying to influence campaigns. But we're really talking about the big money interest. Somebody making $100 or even a $200 donation is not a big player influencing elections, and they deserve to not be harassed by people who don't like the fact that they gave money. And by the way, people shouldn't even know if they gave to a candidate, because that tells you who they voted for. And we do have a secret ballot. So I'm simply raising that threshold level from $100 to $200 to shield people who give donations of $200 or less from these problems. But I'm keeping the 100 level for lobbyist donations, because people do want to see lobbyists giving money to candidates. That's just somebody who is influencing matters. SB 1175, registration observers, count procedures, verification. This very simply will make it easier for parties to bring in party volunteers to watch and observe elections and the election counts. Just a transparency bill. SB 1068, Election Board Workers Political Party. Well, this one is being changed, and I'm actually putting a different bill onto this one, and that is Police Dog Ambulance. Now, you may say, that's an interesting title. I was approached by some police groups, and they were concerned that when police dogs are involved in law enforcement, and these are very often dogs that are involved in SWAT activities, sometimes the dogs are injured or shot, and they need to get them to an emergency veterinary clinic. Well, there aren't too many dog ambulances running around. So they said, hey, if there is a regular people ambulance and no person needs the ambulance, could you pass a bill that ambulance would transport the dog along with his handler to a nearby vet hospital so we can treat the police dog? And that seems fine. Other states have done it. So I'm going to use that election bill for that purpose. SB 1135, spoiled early ballots election day. This simply says that if you have an early ballot and you decided to show up on election day, that they can accept the ballot and put it through the machine right then and there. You don't have to put it into a box and worry that it's not going to get to the counting tabulation room. You can do it right there at the polling place. You have to wait online, but that's the price of liberty. SB 1024, public rights of way, unlawful acts. I think we've all seen images, first in crazy places like Portland and San Francisco, of these massive homeless street encounters where people are pitching tents and makeshift structures all along sidewalks and streets full of homeless people, mentally ill people, drug addicted people, crime, chaos, defecation. They are really disaster areas. We now have one here in Phoenix, no more than about 10 blocks from the Capitol. It has over 1,000 tents or other structures, and it is a hellhole. It is defecation, urination, drug dealing, extortion of people to have space to put their tent or their lean-to up, drug overdoses. It's a horror show. Well, my bill simply says that you cannot allow any tents or other structures to be put on roadways and rights of way. We need to stop this craziness. By the way, I'm going to be introducing a late bill that says if municipalities allow these encampments elsewhere, there are going to have to be mandatory health and safety requirements, like X number of police full-time to police it based on the number of tents or structures, porta-johns, showers. We're not going to let the city of Phoenix and other cities basically take all of these homeless people and shove them into one area and create these ridiculous public nuisances. SB 1036, setting aside conviction certificate of eligibility. This is a correction for a ridiculous error that took place last year in a bill writing. We have a situation where if you're convicted of certain non-dangerous misdemeanors or felonies and you fulfill certain requirements, a judge can basically eliminate the conviction. The idea was we'll let people do only once for a felony, but more than once for a misdemeanor. They got the language backwards. So we now say only once for a misdemeanor, but as many felonies as you want, which is crazy. And this bill simply corrects that old error. So that's this week's Kavanagh's Corner. And the action is still continuing here in the legislature. I should have more about the budget next week, and more of my bills will be going through committees and through floor action and the House of Representatives. So stay tuned for next week's Kavanaugh's Corner, where I'll keep you updated on what I'm doing and what's generally happening at the Arizona State Legislature. Thank you for watching Kavanaugh's Corner.